Hey everyone, welcome to another Eternal set review. Well, I'm renaming this series actually to the Modern set review because honestly it's just focused on Modern, let's be honest. Today's review, obviously, Modern Horizons 2, coming out in a couple of weeks. It's live on MTGO. I'm super excited, even though I can't buy any of the cards right now because they're not available, unsurprisingly. But hey, let's record this video instead. So I'm going to go through cards that I think are either going to definitely be a thing in Modern after Modern Horizons officially releases, or cards that I think are cool but aren't really going to be enough. And of course, there are so many cards that are in this set. There's 300 cards, including all the reprints, so there's probably some I've skipped for various reasons, and there's going to be some that are going to break the format and no one ever figured it out until after the fact of the set coming out. So, you know, that's the usual anyway with Modern. But yeah, I want to go through the list, and before I do though, I'm going to do a quick plug on my Patreon. If you're not a patron yet, check out the link in the description of this video and check out the tiers. If you if you want to help out Delver and support this channel, basically you should check out the patron rewards, because patrons get rewarded at the end of every year for being a supporter of this channel, and the longer you're a patron, the more reward you get. So all that info is on Patreon, but if you want a sneak peek, basically rares and mythics that open on this channel, a lot of them get set aside just for patrons, and they get those rares and mythics at the end of every year, guaranteed. There's no giveaway. It's just you're a patron for 6 months, you get this many rares and mythics. You get some of your money back, essentially. So yeah, check that out. Would really appreciate your support. And let's get on with this review. So first up, these 4 cards. They're all suspend cards. Soul Talisman. This is really cool. I mean, I think it's a cool card. I don't really see it making much of a splash in Modern. I guess it's fine. I mean, you could play it turn 1 and turn 3, right? Or turn 4, it'll come off, and you just get whatever, a soul ring at that point. I don't think it's really that interesting. It's really cool. Maybe, some artifact deck will figure out a way to cheat it out or something, but I don't really think it's going to make much of a splash in Modern. And even if it does, I don't think it's really breaking anything. Tron already kind of hyper ramps in terms of mana production, right? So I don't see it getting any worse than Tron. Inevitable Betrayal, though, this is a spicy card. This is really, really cool, especially with Shardless Agent, which we'll be covering soon, entering the format. Inevitable Betrayal is almost inevitably going to be seeing play. I know in the Shardless Agent deck that I'm currently brewing up, Inevitable Betrayal is going to be making, a 2-of appearance, at least in the sideboard, but maybe even in the main. So I'm really liking Inevitable Betrayal a lot. I definitely think it's going to be seeing play in the Shardless decks. Yeah, super pumped about this card. This is a really cool card, and it's going to really hose a lot of decks. So I'm really looking forward to it. Glimpse of Tomorrow. So not my style of card, that's for sure. But this card is 1000% going to see play. I don't know if it's necessarily going to break anything, which is good, but definitely going to be seeing a lot of decks trying to cheat out a lot of permanents, like a lot of tokens early on, and then playing Glimpse of Tomorrow, either through its suspend cost, just paying it full cost, or, casting it some other, cheated way, essentially. Whatever it is, yeah, the Glimpse of Tomorrow is definitely going to be seeing play. I'm not necessarily looking forward to it because you know what happens. Once this thing resolves, a bunch of permanents are coming onto the battlefield, and probably ones you definitely don't want to see on the battlefield. So not looking forward to it, but I already know people are brewing this, and I'm going to be interested to see at least what comes out of it. But Delver won't be playing it. Mark my words. I will not be playing decks of Glimpse of Tomorrow. Gaia's Will. I'm not sure about Gaia's Will. So Gaia's Will is really cool. You can play turn 1, suspended turn 1, I should say. And let's just read it real quick here. So until end of turn, you may play lands and cast spells from your graveyard. Alright, and if a card will be put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, exile that card instead, which makes sense because you don't want some sort of weird looping. Yeah, I'm not sure where to place Gaia's Will yet. I mean, it could be played perfectly fairly. You can cascade into this, or just, wait the full 4 or 5 turns, essentially, and then start casting whatever instant sorceries, whatever it may be. It could be any spell, right? So it could be any creature spell as well from your graveyard, and I guess that's a thing. But I'm not sure how much of a splash, how much of an effect it'll actually have on Modern. I haven't seen too many decks yet playing Gaia's Will, at least, in the brews sections of various places online. I'm sure if it can be broken, it will be relatively quickly, and that's something I guess I admire the Modern community. If it can be broken, it'll be broken really quick, so at least that's something we could look forward to. But yeah, I'm interested to see if it does get used, where it'll get used, It feels more of it feels like you should be doing something else if you're trying to fill up your graveyard with spells to then cast them. I feel like decks already exist that you can cast cards in your graveyard efficiently, so I don't see where Gaia's Will fits, but yeah, curious to see where this goes, so let's just put that on the watch list. Up next, the Elemental Incarnations, the Evoke cards, if you will, that were spoiled. Alright, so this is interesting. First of all, Fury's not that good, so I don't even include it in my list. I strongly doubt Fury's going to see a lot of play. Maybe, but I feel like it's relatively weak for what it does. Grief. Grief is really going to grief. It's going to grief a lot of people, and it's going to grief me too. This card is pretty cool. I mean, the first 2 days, everyone kind of went nuts. You know, it's talking about interactions with Ephemerate and other types of spells that will be able to almost certainly abuse grief. And I think those are legitimate, and those are going to make for some really nasty, flip table turn ones. I don't know how bad it will actually be, because first of all, you need to get grief in your opening hand, and you need to have Ephemerate in your opening hand or some other card that can abuse it. And it's not really, I don't think it's going to be that common of an occurrence. That being said, when it does occur, I'm almost certainly going to want to flip the table and just auto quit, because that's just how I am. But grief definitely going to be seeing play. I don't know if it's going to be seeing play in all decks that play discard spells. I think it might be asking for a lot, but discard centered decks or discard focused decks, I feel are going to be playing a lot of grief, and even Taxes decks can definitely play grief and abuse it because they also have access to white. So yeah, grief 100% going to be seeing play. I don't know what its longevity is going to be. If people are just going to realize maybe grief is not worth it, but I strongly doubt it. So I think grief is going to be here to stay. Subtlety. So subtlety is also a really, really cool card that I'm definitely keeping my eye on. When it was first spoiled, I was going nuts. And then I read it again. I'm like, well, it's not countering the creature spell or planeswalker spell. It's just, sorry, not spell. Let's just read it here so I don't misrepresent this card. When subtlety enters the battlefield, choose up to one target creature, spell, or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. So that last part is what really threw me off a bit once I reread this card. If I could just put it at the bottom, or if I could choose, that would have been way better. But the fact that my opponent gets to choose is a bit annoying. It kind of takes away from subtlety, but I guess they did that because they didn't want to overtly break this card. That being said, I still think it's totally playable, and I'm probably going to be trying it out at least in some of my Delver decks, and just to see where it goes. I think in terms of subtlety versus grief play, I think you're going to see a lot more grief being played, but subtlety is definitely going to have a mainstay in a lot of control decks. They're going to love this because they're going to be playing a million other control permission spells anyway. So having another pitch-oriented spell is going to be just fine. Yeah, I mean, subtlety I think is here to stay, but I think grief is going to see a lot more play in general. Now, solitude, wow. I usually make fun of white. I mean, if you look at my Strixhaven Eternal set review that I put a couple months ago with Strixhaven coming out, I made fun of white, right? Because of the cards they released for white that were absolute trash for Eternal play at least. Solitude, though, my god, this changes things a lot for white. So let's read this here. Flash Lifelink, which is already pretty cool. Whenever Solitude enters the battlefield, or when Solitude enters the battlefield, exile up to one other target creature. That creature's controller gains life equal to its power. So basically Swords to Plowshares, obviously powered down to modern levels. Not going to be like the original Swords to Plowshares, but pretty close. This is as close as you're going to get, I feel, apart from just a general Swords to Plowshares reprint into modern, which won't happen, I don't think. But this is pretty close. And it's free. I mean, you're putting yourself down in terms of card advantage, but you're also not ramping your opponent. And giving your opponent an extra land is definitely more impactful for your opponent than just giving them some extra life. Even if that extra life is 5-6, it's not as big a deal as giving them an extra land. That was always a downside of Path to Exile. But this is definitely a much better version. I don't think you're going to be playing 4 of. You're probably going to be seeing 4 ofs early on. Maybe this will be cut down. I think this will be Path to Exile 5 through 6 or 5 through 7. We'll see. I mean, I don't play white that much, but just thinking about it, I'm not sure if I would be completely replacing my Path to Exile package with Solitude. I might have a mix of both. yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this is going to settle. It's definitely going to vary from one deck to another. If you're playing all white, for example, mono white, then you could probably definitely swing 4 of these. But once you start mixing and matching, I'm not sure how many of these you actually really want. But yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. Path to Exile could be gone for good, and Solitude is a new Path to Exile. That's perfectly possible. Last but not least, Endurance. So Endurance is definitely the weakest of the 4 here. Not as weak as Fury, the red one, but I think it's the weakest of the 4. So Flash, Reach, which is cool, has a big butt. It's a 3/4. When Endurance enters the battlefield, up to 1 target player puts all of the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order. Alright, so I mean, this is cool. I mean, this is going to be doing some graveyard hate, so Dredge is not going to like this, which I'm perfectly fine with, and potentially some other decks as well that might rely a lot on their graveyard, so Storm being one of them. So, if you keep that in mind, this is pretty cool. Do I prefer this over Grafdigger's Cage? I don't know. I think I kind of prefer Grafdigger's Cage. I don't think I need a like an instant speed, no mana required exile graveyard. I don't need that on a stick either. When I bring in graveyard hate against Storm, for example, I don't necessarily need to apply more pressure on Storm. I just need to shut down their graveyard. Same thing for Dredge. I just need to shut down Dredge, and my normal threat suite does the rest of the job. So I don't really know if Endurance is worth it. That being said, I'm definitely going to try it out. I'm going to see. But I don't know if it's necessarily better than Grafdigger's Cage, for example, which just shuts down the graveyard. The cards are still there, but it shuts it down. So I don't know. We'll see. It really depends on what you really want to hate on. And maybe there are going to be some effects that Grafdigger's Cage doesn't stop, in which case maybe something like Endurance is a good option. So yeah, definitely keeping Endurance on my radar. All right, Counterspell. Of course, it's the background of this video. I'm so happy Counterspell is in Modern now. Mana Leak essentially in almost all of my decks is now going to be Counterspell. At least in 3 color and less decks. So if you're playing 1, 2, or 3 color, I think Counterspell is perfectly fine. Once you get to 4 or 5 color, which are rare, let's admit it, I don't know if Counterspell is going to work as well there, just because color requirements are kind of insane, so Mana Leak might just be better. But definitely anything 3 or less, I'm playing Counterspell at this point. It's just, I'm happy. It's great. I mean, I don't have much to say here. It's a hard counter, and you don't have to worry about it. It's good early game. It's good late game. It's good at any point in time, and you don't have to worry anymore. Before, I would count. I'm like, okay, my opponent's at 3. My opponent's at 3 mana, so as long as they stick to 3 and they play 1 CMC removal, I can Mana Leak them. But the minute they get to 4 and they play like Fatal Push, I'm screwed. Mana Leak becomes useless. This was behind every control player's mind since the beginning of Modern. Now we don't have to worry about that anymore. We have Counterspell. And yes, it does make fetching a bit different. I'm going to have to get used to it. I was really spoiled by Mana Leak being 1 blue, 1 colorless. Counterspell is 2 blue. Whatever. It's definitely worth it at the end of the day. Shardless Agent. Unfortunately, it doesn't work well with Counterspell in the same deck. But hey, that's another story for another day. Shardless Agent is awesome. I'm super happy about Shardless Agent being in Modern now. Yeah, I've never been so excited to brew a new deck with Shardless Agent and playing cards potentially like Ancestral Vision, creating Footfalls, I believe. You can tell I don't play that with that card that often because it's that Rhino card. All right, guys, the Suspend Rhino card where you get 2/4/4 Rhino tokens. All right, there you go. That's the card I'm talking about. I'm sure all of you are going to correct me in the comment section down below, but that's okay. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing with this card, and right now a lot of people are just thinking about Suspend Cards automatically and building decks that run around Suspend Cards, and that's fine. I think down the road we're going to see other types of blue-green X decks pop up with Shardless Agent that aren't necessarily abusing Suspend, they're just value decks, and I'm really looking forward to that as well. That's going to be great. I mean, look at Jund. Jund has been playing Bloodbraid Elf since it was unbanned, and they're not abusing Suspend Cards. Jund's already a great deck, and now they're using Bloodbraid Elf for increased value. Because, you cast it, and you can, cascade it into a Tarmogoyf, or cascade into a Liliana of the Veil, whatever it may be. So, there's no reason that you have to play Suspend Cards with Cascade. So you have options. So right now, a lot of what people are doing, including myself, are abusing Suspend because we want to, because we're doing it in a slightly more fair deck. But I think, down the road, we're going to be seeing a lot more value decks come out, teamer value decks, whatever, even Simic value decks, whatever it may be. So Shardless Agent is a really awesome addition. I'm really happy to see it. Fire and Ice. Who knew? Who knew you wanted this card this badly? Fire and Ice is awesome. I'm putting it in Delver decks immediately, by the way. First of all, late game, you can cast both sides at the same time, which is fantastic. Early game, you can either take out 2 early creatures, like 2 Arbor Elves or whatever, any kind of mana dork that you want to, or even like I was taking out Hex Drinkers today, which is feels fantastic. Using the fire side. The ice side is also very useful. You could tap out a creature, and at the beginning of your opponent's upkeep or whatever, to turn them off from an attack, which can be very useful. It could be your winning strategy. Or you can tap a creature on your turn just to open up the way for you to go and kill your opponent. Whatever it may be, ice has some pretty good upside. You could also use it as a tempo play to for example, turn 2, you play your second land, you hold it up on your opponent's turn. On their upkeep, you play ice and you tap one of their lands. And you turn them off whatever they were planning to do that turn. That's a huge tempo play, and you draw a card on top of it. So yeah, there's a lot of ways you could abuse Fire and Ice. And I'm super pumped about this card. This is such a great addition to Izzet decks. And anything playing blue-red X is awesome. Suspend. So I have to admit, again, just like Subtlety, when I first saw Suspend, I was like, what? This is awesome. Instant speed, 1 blue, exile target creature and put 2 time counters on it. So it's basically suspending it for 2 turns. And when it comes off suspend, it gains haste. All right. But you're getting rid of a creature for at least 2 turns, sometimes 3 turns. If you, depending on when you suspend, you might be, saving yourself from 3 combat steps. Whatever it is, Suspend is great. In those instances, but then you have to start weighing it against the cons. So, with Vapor Snag, for example, when you Vapor Snag a creature, your opponent's gonna have to recast it, and this is fair. I've seen a lot of players make this argument, and they also lose 1 life, which is it's something, but they have to recast it, so they have to respend their resources to get that creature back, and they'll most likely recast it next turn. With Suspend, they don't have to cast it. They just have to wait the 2 turns, and it's going to come back to the battlefield free, essentially, with haste, and they can attack with it immediately. So there's some pros and cons there. That being said, I also saw someone else make this argument where Vapor Snag might be better for larger creatures. Suspend might actually be better for smaller creatures because, for smaller creatures, there's less of a resource impact for your opponent to recast them. Whereas with Suspend, they have no choice. They're going to have to wait the 2 to 3 turns to get them back. So I don't know. I really don't know where Suspend is gonna settle. I'm definitely gonna try it. I play Reality Shift in the sideboard. This might just be a replacement for Reality Shift. I'm not sure. It's gonna take some more testing, actual playing with it to really see how it feels. I'm 50-50 on it. I really don't know if this is gonna be a mainstay in a lot of blue decks or not. But yeah, I mean this is where I stand with Suspend. But it's definitely a card on my radar. Definitely a card I'm trying out. Alright, so these cards are all placeholders for a bunch of cards that were spoiled in this set. Let's start with Tanglepool Bridge, which is an artifact land. There were a bunch of artifact lands. There was an entire cycle. I think all of them were spoiled in Modern Horizons 2. This is pretty cool. It's not the actual artifact lands in the sense that they're not the ones that are currently banned in Modern, and they only produce 1 color. These produce 2. But they also come into the battlefield tapped. So yeah, there's like a pro and con here. They're also indestructible, which is kind of insane. I'm not really sure, how much of an impact these will have. Artifact decks are definitely going to try it out. But again, the real, the tricky thing here is that they come into play tapped and you have no choice. This is the problem. This is why I don't play the Snow Duels, for the same reason. It's an anti-tempo card. It hurts you. Turn 1, it sucks. Turn 2, it sucks. Essentially, it sucks at any time because you're not going to be able to use your land when it comes into play. It feels bad. So they will probably be used in decks that are just doing something stupid, where they don't really need that much mana, or they're producing mana elsewhere. The lands are just consequential because they're going to abuse it because they're also indestructible, so guaranteed some artifact deck or some deck is going to abuse the fact that these are artifacts and they're also indestructible. This is just like 100%. This is where we're going to be seeing play, but they're not going to be seeing play in like some sort of fair affinity deck. I don't see that happening until they print these lands that don't tap. Or don't come into play tapped, where you have an option, you pay 2 life or whatever. Yeah, I really don't know where these are going to stand. I'm lukewarm on them. It's really cool. It's cool that they exist. We've got artifact dual lands, but I don't know how useful they're going to be. Next, Squirrel Sovereign and all the Squirrel cards. So I'm building a Squirrel deck. I really want to make a Squirrel deck that can work in Modern. Almost guaranteed you can. And I want to use just Squirrels as much as possible. I don't want to use any other creature type. But it's really going to be more memey. I didn't even include the crab cards that were spoiled in Modern Horizons. Maybe I should have. Because again, people are going to be building meme decks with them. I'm not sure if they're really going to be serious or not. Same thing for the Squirrel. So, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. There were quite a few good Squirrel cards spoiled. I don't know if you have enough support though. We'll see. We'll see. I really hope it works. I haven't gone too far on my Squirrel Brew yet, but I will be trying it out. So stay tuned for that at some point in the near future. Sometime over the summer, I'm going to be decking a Squirrel deck, which means I have matches to show you. You're going to be seeing Squirrels, maybe brushing up against Tarmogoyfs and Eldrazi. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen to Modern? Next, Enchantress's Presence and all the enchantment cards that were spoiled in Modern Horizons 2. Same thing. I'm not sure where Enchantress is going to settle in Modern. A lot of players are saying don't freak out. It's not really going to be impactful enough. There was already an enchantment deck that I played against too many times, honestly, than I would like, and it was annoying. I still beat it most of the time, but it was very annoying, and it felt like it was like a card or two away from breaking. And now they got a bunch. So I'm really not sure what those decks are going to look like going forward. It might not be enough, though, still, to make them high-tier decks. But maybe high enough where you're going to be seeing a lot. You should expect to see them in a tournament or whatever. Whereas before, they're just kind of fringe. I think they're going to be maybe tier 3. Something where, you have to keep it back of your mind. But they won't be prevalent in a tier 1 or 2 sense. I really don't know. I'm concerned because I really hate those decks. Because they tend to be prison-style decks. And prison-style decks are essentially the worst type of deck in Magic, in my experience, apart from Dredge. So, yeah, if you want to know where Delver stands in those type of decks, that's me. If you're a player that loves them, I don't got any hate for you, mostly. At least as a human being, I have no hate for you. But I definitely hate the decks that you're playing. Sorry. Still, I hope you still love Delver after that comment. Let's move on to Murph. Murph got a lot of love here as well. These cards are awesome. Some more awesome than the others. So, Sphelion of Sea and Sky, whatever, it's a Merfolk god. Pretty cool effect. I think it's being slightly overhyped, just slightly. But that also being said, it's definitely going to see play in every Merfolk deck, and I don't think it's going to leave. So let's read it real quick here. So, 7 Sea, Sky, whatever, as indestructible as long as you control at least 2 other Merfolk, which honestly most of the time is going to be perfectly easy. And it's a 3/4 butt, by the way, for 3 mana. So it's out of bolt range here, and you need a Revolt Trigger on Fatal Push. So this is going to be very annoying to remove if it resolves, just FYI. Whenever Sphelium attacks, draw a card. Alright, you're going to be attacking with it quite a bit, especially with all your Merfolk Lords. It's not going to be a 3/4 for very long. It's going to be a 4/5, 5/6, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be insane. So you're definitely going to be attacking with it. And you're drawing a card. You just have to attack. You don't even have to make impact with your opponent or your creature. You just have to swing and you draw a card, which is amazing. Other Merfolk you control have Ward 1. Do you understand how annoying this is? This is brutal. This is a really brutal card. Actually, as I'm reading it now, maybe it wasn't as overhyped as I thought it was, because that Ward ability is going to suck. It's going to suck so much. I'm so happy I have Counterspell because I really do not want this to resolve. If it's resolved and I'm playing Teamer, it's going to be hell to get rid of it. And Ward 1 is just going to make all the other Merfolk really hard to kill. I'm really concerned. That being said, I played Merfolk in Legacy. I really loved playing Merfolk in Legacy. So, deep down inside, I'm kind of happy. It is an aggro deck at the end of the day, which means it's interactive, at least, which I like. So, whatever. This is the type of deck I welcome getting power-ups to. Seeing more Merfolk is going to be fine. It's going to be fun to play with them. Definitely don't look forward to seeing this particular Merfolk god on the battlefield, though. It's going to definitely trigger me a lot. Rishadan Dockhand. I'm seeing a lot of Merfolk lists playing it. I'm not sure if the fact that this card comes in with Summoning Sickness is worth it. It has Island Walk, which is great, but paying 1, tap target land, turn 2. It's going to be annoying if it survives. I don't know if it's going to be good enough. I really don't. The Merfolk players seem to think that it is, since they're jamming 4 of these. We'll see. I mean, there's always hype during the release of a new set, especially a set like this where it's modern. A lot of the cards are modern centric. So yeah, my voice has cracked twice already through this video. It's very annoying. As a 30 plus year old, it's very annoying that my voice keeps cracking. But I've had this cold for like 2 months now. So anyway, yeah, curious to see where this goes. This is going to be interesting as well. It's going to be very annoying after tapping my lands, by the way. So I'm definitely going to be bolting this card. Tide Shaper. So yeah, I'm less sold on Tide Shaper because a lot of merfolk are saying that this is an improved or just a better version of Spreading Seas, which they often play in their main, mostly to turn on Island Walk for their merfolk, which is understandable. And you draw a card off of it. I don't know about Tide Shaper because, okay, let's just read it here. So you're almost always going to be casting it with its character cost. Almost always. Like I can't imagine a merfolk player casting it for 1. So when it is kicked, when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, target land becomes an island. For as long as Tide Shaper remains on the battlefield, Tide Shaper gets +1/+1 as long as an opponent controls an island. So it's going to be a 2/2 and then a 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, depending on all the lores that also exist on the battlefield. All right. I mean, it's cool. It has a similar effect. You're not drawing a card, though. So that's the downside. I mean, drawing a card is great. And you're playing... Merfolk is one of those few decks where you're playing all blue and you have almost no card draw. And now you do. Now you do with your God. And, you know, you did with your Spreading Season. Now you don't. I don't know. I feel like it's a weird trade-off. Second of all, it's only valid as long as Tide Shaper is on the battlefield. So, A, you don't want to attack in if it's going to lose. B, if it gets bolted, which, you know, even as a 2/2, it's still can get bolted for a while. Then you lose your Spreading Seas, whereas before, Spreading Seas, it costs a lot more for your opponent to get rid of it. If they weren't able to counter it, they have to, you know, get it off their land somehow, Ghost Quarter it, or maybe they can't. They're just stuck. So, I don't know. Spreading Seas seems like a more permanent solution to what Merfolk wants to do. This seems like a temporary one. But they're all, I mean, it is a Merfolk, so it does synergize with all the creatures. So I don't want to tell Merfolk players what is and what isn't good. They know better than me. So we'll just leave it at that. Goblin, Anarchomancer, and Thrasta Tempest Roar. All right. So we all know at this point that Red-Green Storm is going to be tried. I feel like it's going to be a fun deck. Definitely not a deck I'm going to play myself because I don't play those type of decks. But I kind of still want to see this deck work. I am asking myself if it's better than just playing blue-red Storm, like right now. Like, it's something that I've been bouncing around in the back of my head, and I'm just sharing it with you now, so I'd love to hear from you in the comment section down below. Go ahead and start typing if you have an opinion on this. I'm not sure if blue-red Storm is just going to be better. I feel like red-green Storm is just going to be doing a lot of things to try and cheat Thrasta onto the battlefield, assuming you even have it. And you don't have access to blue, and blue is kind of important for all your draw spells and Gifts Ungiven, which you won't have access to in your red-green. So, I don't know. I know people are definitely going to try it. I welcome it. I don't know where it's going to sit. I mean, I think it'll be cool if it works out. It works out to be competitive and modern. I'm sure it will be to a degree because you could have some pretty explosive turn 2s, and you could potentially have a Thrasta turn 2, I think. If the stars align, which is kind of brutal because the game's almost certainly over at that point, because very few decks can bounce back from that. But, you know, again, you have to have the perfect hand. And Storm can durdle a bit and still kill you out of nowhere. Traditional blue-red Storm. So I'm really not sure where these are going to stand. Even if red-green Storm doesn't work out, though, I think Goblin and Archomancer is going to see a lot more play in decks in the future. A lot of Gruul decks. You know, this is a cost reduction card. Each spell you cast that's red or green costs 1 less to cast. All right, so everything that costs 3 is now 2. Everything that costs 4 is now 3. You know, quick maths, right? So I think this is great as a cost reduction for Gruul, even if you're not playing in Storm. So I would keep my eye on Goblin and Archomancer. All right, Abundant Harvest. I've been playing a bit with it today. It's as good as I thought it was going to be, at least in the teamer decks that I'm playing it in. Man, it's awesome. It's the best. It works best early on when you need your second land drop or maybe your third. You play it and you know you're getting a land. There's no if, ands, or buts. Before, if you needed your second land, let's say we're playing Teamer Delver here, you replace Serum Visions and you pray that the 3 cards you're going to be looking at right now, one of them is a land. Sometimes they're not. Same with sleight of hand. You go sleight of hand, you look at the top two, and they're not lands, great. Try next turn. That was essentially the world we lived in. Now, I could have a 1-lander opening hand with Abundant Harvest, and all of a sudden I'm like, snap, keep, turn 1, Abundant Harvest, get another land, get my second land drop, and we're off to the races. Mid to late game, when I don't need another land anymore, go give me a value card, give me a non-creature card. I'm perfectly fine with. Give me a non-land card. I'm perfectly fine with it. Almost every card that you can give me is going to be better than potentially getting a land. Like I can guarantee this. Once I have 3 to 4 lands on the battlefield, I don't want to see any more. So if Abundant Harvest can guarantee me a non-land draw, that's amazing. So Abundant Harvest is awesome. I don't know how many decks are actually going to pick it up. Delver decks are definitely picking it up. And I'm definitely going to play it in decks where I'm playing obviously green, and I think that it would be useful and I want to cut some of my lands. Abundant Harvest allows you to cut a land potentially from your overall lands in your deck. So that's also very important. So Dagon Shadow Slayer, I feel like there was hype when this was initially revealed, because it was one of the first cards revealed in Modern Horizons, and then everyone just kind of shut up about it because there were so many other cards spoiled, which is completely understandable. But my eye is on this Planeswalker. Crack number 3 of the voice there. I don't play Esper, I think, ever. It's not my style. There's no green there, so I can't play Tarmogoyf, which is kind of a bummer. But, in a control deck, in an Esper control deck, which exists, you play this turn 4, turn 5. It comes up with 4 or 5 loyalty counters. You can start exiling a target creature. You can surveil too, which is awesome, by the way. And its ultimate is you may put an artifact card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. So whatever artifact card you want to cheat in, you can. And if you cast this when you have 6 lands, by the way, you could ultimate immediately. I'm concerned about this card. I mean, I don't think it's going to break anything, but this card is going to be something to worry about. And by the way, let's read its other static ability here. Dagon Shadow Slayer enters the battlefield. Oh yeah, well, it's just explaining it to you. Enters the battlefield with loyalty counters on him equal to the number of lands you control. All right. I mean, okay. I mean, if you're casting it for 7, if you're casting with 7 lands, you can ultimate, and hey, you're still fine. Now, granted, 7 lands is kind of insane, but if you're talking about a control deck, they get to 6-7 lands quite often because they're slowing down the game significantly with their permissions. So yeah, I'm curious to see where if Dagon Shadow Slayer fits in to any Esper control decks. Really, really curious, because I think this is a great Planeswalker overall. I'm really curious to see where this fits. Harmonic Prodigy. This is a cool card. I don't know if I'm going to play with it early on, but this is a cool card. Prowess for 2 mana. It's a 1/3, which is already interesting. If an ability of a shaman or another wizard you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Alright, so we're not just talking about prowess here. We're talking about any shaman or wizard, if they have a triggered ability, it triggers twice. So yeah, obviously, you currently have, your prowess creatures where they can, double trigger. But this works for Dreadwood Arcanist, for example, which is a card I play with often. That's kind of dirty. If I attack once with Dreadwood Arcanist, but I could target 2 non-creature cards. I could target 2 non-creature spells in my deck, in my graveyard, instant sorcery. Okay, no one's complaining. That being said, as a 2 mana 1/3 prowess with no haste or anything else, it's obviously limited. You're playing this literally for its ability, and it doesn't, it affects itself too because of prowess, right? But read it. If an ability of a shaman or another wizard you control. So not Harmonic Prodigy. This is very important wording here. If an ability of a shaman, which this is not, or another wizard, which this is, but this is not you. So just keep that in mind. So it'll work once you have 2 on a battlefield, but not when there's 1. So there's limited ability here, and I think that's what probably is the main limiting factor, is that the card in and of itself is unremarkable. It makes your other shamans or wizards more remarkable. So that's just something to keep in mind. That being said, I'm sure it's going to be abused somehow, and I'm missing it. But yeah, I'm waiting to see where this goes. It's a very interesting card. It's a very interesting design in my opinion. The next card is very annoying design. Of the tier list of Delver's cards, decks that Delver hates, Mill is around, near the top there. Fractured Sanity for 3 blue. Each opponent mills 14 cards because, we already had the 10 card mill. We already had the 10 mill card. We already had what's it called? Archival Trap, which mills 13, I think, some ridiculous number, or 12, whatever the number is, some stupid number. Now we have Fractured Sanity, which, fine, 3 blue is totally doable for mill decks, and you could cycle it if you want, and if you do, each opponent mills 4 cards. So if you want to just have your opponent mill 4 cards instead of the full 14, then fine, go cycle it, whatever. That's really annoying. I'm pretty sure mill decks are gonna, adopt this in some number, and it's just, why? Why? I mean, I understand every deck has a right to exist, almost, except for Dredge, but yeah, this is very, very, very frustrating card. All right, Unholy Heat. We're getting near the end here, folks. Thanks for sticking this long, but there were a lot of cards to cover. Unholy Heat is pretty spicy. So it's an instant for one. It's 1 red instant. Unholy Heat deals 2 damage to target creature, planeswalker. Very unremarkable shock, essentially. Unholy Heat with Delirium, though, deals 6 damage instead. Wow, this is amazing. It's amazing for me and a lot of Delver players since we're currently building a Delirium-centered Delver deck. So if we're trying to get Delirium active as early as possible, as often as turn 2, this is an instant speed 6 damage to a creature or planeswalker. This will kill almost all planeswalkers. This early on, before they start getting pumped. This will kill almost all creatures. This is brutal. This is brutal, and it's instant speed. It's not even sorceries, so you can play it at any time, and your opponent won't see it coming, at least initially. This is brutal. Obviously, if it went to the face, this card would be broken, which is why it doesn't go to the face. But a creature or planeswalker is perfect. A lot of us, for example, in the Delver community already played Flame Slash, and a lot of people play Flame Slash even outside of Delver. I don't know, I feel if you're playing Delirium, the Flame Slash is pointless. Unholy Heat is way better. Leaps and bounds better. So, yeah, this card is definitely going into my Delirium decks, and is going to be staying there for a long time. Vindicate, destroy target permanent. We got Vindicate. White, again, reaping the benefits of this set. Destroy target permanent, just boom. Sorcery speed, which is fine, but this Star Wars-like, art is telling you to destroy any permanent you want. Land, non-land, doesn't really matter, and it's costs you 3 mana. So, awesome. This is pretty cool for, Death and Taxes decks, which are already kind of slowing you down, taxing you. They get the 3 mana just fine, and they get to destroy anything. This is kind of brutal. That, white-black, or white, doesn't have this ability. Didn't have this ability before, at least not at this rate. Now they do. Vindicate is an awesome card. It's going to be seeing 2 ofs for sure in black-white decks. That's I can't see it any less than that. Break the Ice, also very interesting. It's snow hate, but let's be honest, this is mostly Tron hate. Destroy target land that is snow or could produce a Wingding, colorless. And if you overload it, you destroy all of them, essentially. So this is kind of brutal. Obviously, 6 mana is really steep when you're playing against a deck like Tron. And very few decks are playing a lot of snow. So this is mostly going to be cast for 2 black. But still, this is a great card. It's great hate. Along with all the other hate that's been printed in this set. It's a nice way to target snow decks if they ever make a resurgence. And it's also a nice way to take care of Tron and slow them down. It's great. Double black is perfectly fine for a lot of decks. This is very interesting. I'm kind of happy to see it in a way. Damn. So Damn's pretty damn good, in my opinion. I made this joke on Twitter, and I had to make this stupid joke again in this video. For 2 black, destroy target creature, can't be regenerated. Cool. That's decent. It's sorcery speed. Just destroy target creature. That's great. So any kind of creature. There's limitations on that. You could also overload it for 2 white and 2 colorless to destroy each creature, or every creature, essentially. And it can be regenerated. So for overload, it's a Wrath of God, essentially, which is great. So you have the option. If you're playing a black-white deck, you have the option here to do one or the other. You can play Damn early on if you want to take care of a really problematic creature right now, or you can save it into your hand, or if you draw it later into the game, it just gets better because you could just overload it, play 2 white instead, and 2 colorless, and destroy everything. So if you're playing a white-black deck, there's really no point in playing Wrath of God anymore, is essentially what I'm reading, because this is just a better Wrath of God, like in every way, right? Like, why would you play Wrath of God if you can play this? Assuming you also play black. If you don't play black, then just play Wrath of God. There's no point. But I fail to see why this would be played less than Wrath of God, or played alongside Wrath of God. I guess you could play both, but I would just replace my Wrath of Gods with this. Boom, done. That's just how I'd go. All right, Ignoble Hierarch and Mirari's Wake. Ignoble Hierarch, I'm super thrilled to see this card getting printed. This is fantastic. I love Noble Hierarch, and Ignoble Hierarch is now adding to, I mean, you could play 8 Noble Hierarchs in a deck, which is insane. I'm super pumped about this. And it's in Jund colors, which is very relevant. Those are very strong colors, and those are very strong together. This is fantastic. I'm looking forward to Temur Hierarch. Please print Temur Hierarch in next Modern Horizons Wizards. I will buy all of your boxes if you do, because I really want a Temur Hierarch. But for now, I'll settle for Noble Hierarch and Ignoble Hierarch. I already have my playset pre-ordered. I'm looking forward to it. That's Voice Creek number 4, by the way, if you're keeping count. Mirari's Wake, I'm not sure if it's really going to make much of a break in this format, at least. Really cool to see it playable in Modern. It is 5 mana, but that being said, when you're playing green, you're ramping anyway. So you could probably get this out turn 4, maybe turn 3. But then you got to do something with it. So it does pump all your creatures. Crack number 5. +1/+1. Which is great. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type of that land produced. So you're basically doubling your mana every time. I mean, you need something to sink that mana into. So that's really where Mirari's Wake fails. At least in my opinion. So if you find like a huge mana sink where you need to sink in like 10, 12 mana to just kill your opponent somehow, one shot, then Mirari's Wake is fine. I don't really think it's going to make much of a dent in the format, but it's really cool to see it legal at least and have it be an option. And that art, by the way, is fantastic, but I don't see it going anywhere. Okay, Ragavan. Everyone's going nuts over Ragavan. Ragavan's great. I mean, it is legendary, which I feel limits its use. It's a 2/1. It's gonna be really hard for this card to make impact, like to make contact with a player, and it's only really valuable when it makes contact with a player. So it's just something you have to keep in mind. I mean, everyone's going nuts over it. I definitely think it's now going to take a permanent seat in Modern. I don't think it's going to be as prevalent. Well, I might die on this hill, by the way, but I don't think it's going to be as prevalent as many people have pumped it up to be. But that being said, I mean, the cost of this card right now, the pre-order price is insane. So I must be missing something. It is a great value card, don't get me wrong. I don't think it fits in every deck that plays red, and right now that's how it's being pumped up as. I don't see that. So we'll see where Ragavan settles. Definitely a card. Wait a bit before you buy it, because I feel like as people cool off and they realize, okay, it's actually not as easy as you think to make contact with your opponent. Its prices will drop, its usage will drop, and you could afford it a bit more. That art, by the way, is fantastic. Even I find this art is even better than the extended art or the alternate art. This is just awesome. I would love to own one of these in foil because I just think it looks fantastic as artwork. Dragon's Rage Channeler. I'm going nuts over this card, and a lot of players are. This is an awesome, really powerful card. This is why we're building Delver Delirium. So let's read this here. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, survey 1. I play anywhere between 26 and 30 non-creature spells in my Delver decks. So that's like 50% of my deck is non-creature spell. And not just instant and sorcerer, by the way. Literally non-creature. So anything. Surveil 1. And Surveil 1 means you look at the top of your card and you can put that card into your graveyard. So in and of itself, Dragon's Rage Channeler helps you feed Delirium, get Delirium on board. And when Delirium is active, it's a 3/3 flyer. Okay. I mean, plenty of 3/3s going around in Modern right now. So this is not something that, you can make the Bolt argument to. And it's a 1 mana 3/3. And you just have to more or less play your deck and you could get Delirium active. So yeah, this card, I don't think it's being overhyped. Maybe it's even being underhyped. I'm not sure. It's definitely not going to break anything, but it's just a powerful card. It's just really powerful, I feel. Especially built in the right deck. And I feel like Temur Delirium decks are a great place to start. Yeah, this is fantastic. Late game, you draw it, it's gonna almost always going to be a 3/3. Whereas if you draw a late game Delver of Secrets, you have to wait a turn and hope it flips. So yeah, this is interesting. I'm super pumped about this card. I can't wait to play with it more. Rakdos Headliner. I just think this is a cool card. There's no card in Modern right now at this rate where it's just a 2 CMC 3/3 haste, and the Echo cost is, I think, totally doable in an aggro deck or an Rakdos deck. So yeah, 3/3 haste for 2 mana. So turn 2, I have to deal with this. I'm not looking forward to this. This is fantastic. I think it would be unplayable without haste, but with haste, it changes everything, and it could stick around too. Just by discarding a card, you could probably enable what's it called? Not Madness. Oh, I'm blanking on that ability now. Remind me in the comment section down below, people, of what I'm trying to that ability that triggers when you discard a card. Anyway, whatever it is, this card is going to be seeing quite a bit of play early on, I feel, and I think it's going to pop up in red-black decks for a long time to come, because it's just an awesome aggro. This is a card where you just cast it, you turn sideways, and boom, that's what you want to do with it. Territorial Kavu is so cute. It's cute, right? Am I the only person who thinks this creature is cute? It's a Kavu. It has Domain, which is awesome. Territorial Kavu's power and toughness are each equal to the number of basic land types among lands you control. So, great. In the right deck, this is almost going to be a 4/4 or 5/5 at all times, which is bonkers. And every time it attacks, choose one, discard a card if you do draw a card. Great. Mid to late game, you discard the lands you don't need, or a card you don't need, and you get to draw another card. That's awesome. Or you exile up to one target card from a graveyard, which is also very relevant against Lurrus decks, whatever it may be. And this comes down turn 2, so you could start doing this as early as turn 3. Yeah, I'm already building a Domain deck. I just have to. Between this and the Draco Dragon that we're going to be covering soon. Yeah, this is just an awesome card. I'm super happy to see this card. I feel like it's not getting enough attention. I think Domain decks are going to make a resurgence. I don't know if they're going to be high tier decks, but people are definitely playing Domain decks again, and I'm really looking forward to that. Murktide Regent and Obsidian Charma. Alright, Murktide Regent. What? This is crazy. I almost can't believe it. Okay, crack number 6. Yeah, okay. So Delve, flying, Murktide Region enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each instant and sorcery card exiled with it. So this is almost always going to be a 4/4, like bare minimum 4/4. And it could go up to a 5/5, 6/6, 7/7, depending on how many instant sorceries you have in your graveyard, for 2 mana. And whenever an instant or sorcery card leaves your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this can potentially get even bigger as the game progresses. I'm going nuts over this. I don't know where to put it. Like, it could go in so many things. And I love dragons, and here they are. Great. I'm speechless. I'm speechless because I feel like this is really overpowered. Maybe I'm overvaluing it right now, but I feel like this is going to be super problematic, and to deal with. I mean, I don't even know how to deal with it. Like, if I have to face it down, you just have to, I don't know, you have to destroy it, essentially. Maybe Suspend is better than I thought, because you really need to get rid of this. Now, if you counter it, it's brutal. It's really brutal for your opponent if it gets countered, because they just got rid of a lot of cards, and they're not going to be casting another one of these for a while. But that's true of most Delve creatures, so there's nothing new there. Obsidian Charma, this is just cool Tron hate again. Let's be honest, this is really only going to be good against Tron. I'm not sure if it's necessary, but I definitely see some decks. I don't know what decks they are, but I definitely see some decks where they may feel like their Tron matchups aren't that good. So playing 2 of these in the side might be perfectly fine to put Tron at bay alongside other hate cards you would already have when you have access to red. So yeah, I mean, Obsidian Charma, I don't think I would be playing it in a lot of my teamer decks, for example, but I might be playing it in other decks totally, because it's a great 4/4 flyer, and when it enters the battlefield, add insult to injury, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. So not only are you getting it for 2/2, most likely, you're getting it for 2 CMC, but you're also going to destroy one of your opponent's lands. That's just brutal. It's like spitting in their face, which is fantastic. Void Mirror. Yeah, I mean, everyone was pumping this up as a Tron hate or Force of Negation hate or whatever. I get it. I definitely think it's going to see sideboard play. It still seems a bit too narrow. It really depends on how much the evoke creatures are used and how much the suspend decks are going to be roaming around with Shardless Agent. This may very well become like a required sideboard card. It is very possible. But it also might not be as strong as we're thinking. I don't know. This is a card where I need to play with it to really see its value overall. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. Blossoming Calm. Again, it's a sideboard card. People are touting this up as a card that would be good against Storm. It could be used good. It could be good against burn decks as well. By the way, being able to not have any of their spells hit your face for a couple of turns is very useful, and gaining 4 life, very useful as well. So Blossoming Calm in white decks might take up some slots in sideboards, which is pretty cool. Persist. I mean, it's cool to have Persist as a card, I guess. It's the good, what's the word here? The good emergency break here is that you're targeting a non-legendary creature, which you could still target plenty of powerful, non-legendary creatures, but at least there's that, there's that control there. So I don't think Persist is going to be as bad as I initially thought it was going to be, but I'm sure you're going to see plenty of decks trying to play it and, do some really annoying things with it. All right, last but not least, Imperial Recruiter. Yeah, Imperial Recruiter is definitely be seeing playing human decks. I see all the humans players being super excited about it. I'm not sure, honestly. I mean, it's a great card. I'm not sure what super powerful 2 CMC or less, 2 power or less human cards you want to go get, but yeah, why not? I mean, it's going to be used as kind of like a Swiss Army knife, essentially, right? So whatever you need at any particular time, you cast Imperial Recruiter and you go get that creature, and you can go hit on your opponent. So I guess in that sense, I think it's pretty cool and pretty powerful. But I'm not a humans player. Number 7, I think. Crack number 7. So yeah, it's hard to fully evaluate this card, but it's strong. I can't deny that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what human pilots do with it. Dauthi Voidwalker, by the way, though, is kind of insane. Has Shadow, which is amazing. This creature can't block or be blocked by only creatures with Shadow. Basically, it can't be blocked unless there's another Shadow creature on the battlefield. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a Void counter on it. Sacrifice this creature and choose an exiled card an opponent controls. An opponent owns with a Void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. So I mean that second ability is very powerful, but its first ability is what's really crazy here. So this is just like a hoser, complete hoser for any graveyard strategies. I would not want to see this card because it also turns off Delirium decks. This is going to be something to look out for in mono black decks. I feel even black white decks, but I feel mono black decks are definitely going to try and abuse this a lot, and more power to them. Really, this is really an awesome, cool design. I really like it, and the ability to get to cast one of those cards for free. Oh man, I would be super tilted. This is going to be bolted immediately or removed in some form or fashion. I think the fact that it's a 3/2 is telling. I think a 3/3 would have pushed us even more, but 3/2 I think is better overall. It gets hit by a few more burn spells. Sanctifier en Vec, protection from black and from red. Talk about more graveyard hate. When Sanctifier en Vec enters the battlefield, exile all cards that are black or red from all graveyards. If a black or red permanent, spell, or card not on the battlefield will be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. So again, these two creatures together just say goodbye to to Dredge, which I'm happy about. Say goodbye to literally any graveyard strategy. And the fact that this card has protection from red and black means you're not removing it in any. They can't do anything. You can't bolt it. You can't fatal push it. You can't do anything. You could path it. You can do something with blue, but black and red, you just literally can't deal. It's like a core Firewalker. You can't deal with core Firewalker. very easily. This reminds me of Core Firewalker, essentially. I don't know if it's going to see mainboard play. Definitely not, most likely, but it's definitely going to be seeing sideboard play. So I'm really, really excited to see this card. Last but not least, I almost forgot about this card, and I mentioned it just before. Scion of Draco. This card is fantastic. Fantastic in Domain. Like I told you, Domain is making a comeback. This card for 2 mana, and you could reliably do this on turn 2. People are saying you could reliably do this on turn 2. Go fetch a Triome. Turn 2, go fetch a shock land that fills up the five land types, and you're casting this turn 2. Turn 2, 4/4 flyer. It's 12 CMC, so goodbye Fatal Push. You're not touching this. Eliminate. You're not touching this. Each creature you control has Vigilance if it's white, Hexproof if it's blue, Lifelink if it's black, First Strike if it's red, Trample if it's green. This is crazy. And if you're playing cards that are dual color, like Territorial Kavu, for example, it's going to gain Trample and First Strike. That's absurd, and it's going to be a 5/5. So a 5/5 Trample First Strike. This card is pushing Domain back into Modern. I'm actively building a Domain Zoo deck right now with this and Territorial Kavu and some other cards. I am super, super stoked about playing this card. Oh, by the way, I mean, if you draw a turn 3 or turn 4, it's almost certainly going to be 2 mana. So this is always going to be good. I am thrilled. I almost don't believe that this card exists. I mean, Wizards fetches exist. Triomes exist. This card is brutal. I don't know how to deal with it. It's an artifact creature, fine. It'll die to artifact hate. But you don't pack artifact hate in the main. So turn 1, game 1, turn 2, you have this. Yeah, again, you don't pack a game 1. So this is just brutal. I can't believe I forgot to include it in my list, but it's here now. Scion of Draco. I'm 1000% playing with this card. I'm super stoked about it. All right, that's it for my super long Modern Horizons 2 set review. I did not think it would go this far, but I had a lot to say about all these cards. So I really hope you found this interesting and informative. If you're still here, 57 minutes in, tell me in the comment section down below. Anytime I do really long videos like this, I want to hear from you psychopaths that listen to me for 57 minutes, because you are psychopaths. But thank you anyway. I really appreciate it. I would also really appreciate if you give this video a thumbs up and you subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. It really goes a long way. Hit that notification bell. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, share my content on social media. All that stuff really goes a long way. Watching my content like you are right now, all the way to the finish. Super awesome. Thank you very much. And if you want to support this channel on Patreon and get rewarded for supporting this channel on Patreon, would really appreciate that as well. Again, the goal about my Patreon is mostly to reward you back and not for me to necessarily make money off of it. I'll be explaining that more in other videos. But yeah, please consider it if you haven't already. Thanks. And yeah, enjoy Modern Horizons. Can't friggin' wait. Have a good one.